Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Mercury in the sign of Cancer making a trine to Saturn in the sign of Pisces. This is a really important trine between these two planets, given the backstory of this moon cycle. And so it is not just your average trine. It's a little, I called it sneaky important. And I feel like once I show you the backstory of this trine, and we talk about the delineations of this archetypal combination of planets, I think you're going to find that it carries a little bit more weight than a normal fast-moving trine or sextile might between these two planets. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections. You can find transcripts of any of my daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. I'm going to take you over there right now to promote a couple of events that we have coming up. If you go over to the events page and click on speaker series, you will see that our summer speaker series is coming up. These are all events that are free to the public. And when you sign up, you register, you get a link to join the webinars. And if you cannot attend live, you get the recordings afterwards. So check those out. If you go to the events page and click on live talks, you'll see my monthly webinar series. And you will see that the previous talks in my webinar series are for sale if you missed them. July 18th, I'm doing a talk on Uranus's entrance into Gemini, which is coming next year. We did Neptune and Aries, the other major transit of next year already. So covering some of the major outer planetary shifts that are happening in 2025. This will be a really fun exploration of Uranus's meaning in the sign of Gemini. That's July 18th. I will have more talks posted soon for August, September, and October. So wait for those. They should be up shortly. Anyhow, so those are our promotions for the day. Let's now turn our attention to the real-time clock so we can see this trine forming between Mercury and Saturn. So here we are, Wednesday, June 26th. And what I want to point out to you is here, there's Mercury in the sign of Cancer, forming a trine with Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Now, this will form today. If we go forward one day, you'll see that Mercury's already at 21 degrees by tomorrow morning. So it moves pretty quickly. It's a fast-moving trine, but you may notice that this trine is a little extra because a couple of things. One, the moon is also zipping through the sign of Pisces, sort of emphasizing the trine between Cancer, the sign of the moon, and Pisces. So we get the moon in on the action, but here's where this trine is sort of sneaky powerful. I want to go back to our new moon in the sign of Gemini. This new moon in Gemini happened in applying square with Venus, the Sun, Moon, and Saturn. So the moon cycle we are in that began June 6th started off with a heavy dose of Mercury-ruled planets squaring Saturn in Pisces. We talked a lot about this moon cycle as something that could have a lot to do with mental and emotional health. Mental and emotional health getting on the same page often means that we are going through a maturing process with respect to mental, verbal, intellectual, and emotional intelligence. That those themes are very strong in this moon cycle. And then we saw, very importantly, we keep taking this forward just a little bit, we saw Mercury moving through the square to Saturn right here. This was about June 12th. And we saw this happening right as Mercury was also going through its reset with the sun in the synodic cycle. So it hits the square to Saturn, and then shortly after it's Cazimi, and then it moves into the sign of Cancer, where it is now slowly emerging from under the beams of the sun. So let's take this forward just a little bit further to where we now have the trine. What's really interesting about this is that this trine is happening as Mercury is emerging from under the beams of the sun. So we have Mercury starting to appear as the evening star, and it's doing so now connecting in a trine with Saturn, who it squared just before it went through that synodic rebirth moment of the Cazimi. And we have the same squares from all planets in a Mercury-ruled sign of Gemini at the outset of the last moon cycle. So this is, in other words, a moment, a very brief but very flashy moment of integration, synthesis, and I think you could say kind of it has the feeling of development and progress because you start off with all of these planets squaring Saturn. And now, as Mercury's moving from out of the beams of the sun as the ruler of that last new moon, we're still in the moon cycle. The moon is now in Pisces, accenting the connection through a trine between Mercury and Saturn. To me, this feels therefore like a very important moment, like a little test or a trial, asking us, how much have you learned since the start of this moon cycle with respect to things like mental and emotional intelligence, mental and emotional health? I think that this is a kind of testing moment, integration or synthesis moment, a moment of healing and insight, because the trines tend to bring things together cohesively, whereas the squares tend to present tensions. We're moving thus from tension to synthesis with respect to the significations of Mercury and Saturn that were so present at the beginning of the moon cycle. So, three things to watch for, in my humble opinion, right now, today, or you could have felt it a little bit yesterday, maybe a little bit tomorrow. The first one would be here we now have Mercury and Saturn trining each other, very constructive connection between the two of them. Of course, Saturn's still in the superior position. And so, what I wonder is, have we developed emotional, mental, and verbal boundaries if we needed to? If there has been a theme of oversharing or an inability to control or contain emotions, thoughts, feelings, ideas in ways that are more mature or responsible or grounded, have we developed that container? Have we developed a little bit more discernment or a little bit more discrimination or careful judgment as to who and what we share or open ourselves to? So the development of healthier boundaries verbally, mentally, and emotionally, I think it's been in the air since the beginning of the moon cycle. And I could very easily see this being a time where we're we're being tested. Have you matured? Have you developed the container? Here's a moment where now there's integration or synthesis around some of these themes. The other thing that I would say is, generally speaking, this can go in two different directions. One, the combination of these planets, both at the outset of the cycle and then now in the trine connection between Mercury and Saturn, could reflect the need to share less and hold more, to worry less and trust more, to need less and to find more within ourselves, to sort of develop a better emotional mental container in terms of restraint, in terms of holding more and being less porous, having healthier, stronger, firmer boundaries. Uh, it's kind of like you could almost see the image of the outset of the cycle of someone who says whatever's on their mind without any kind of filter, or you could see someone who processes or shares too much with a lover and they don't give that lover enough space, and they don't process enough on their own so that the lover feels overburdened by the inner process or anxieties or fears and like, I'm not your therapist, I'm your partner kind of thing. I mean, we're all here to hold space for each other, right? But you could almost see the outset of the cycle. And then coming to this moment, we say, I've recognized that I now have a little bit better sense of, when and how much to share and vent and how my relationship can hold space for an inner process and how it shouldn't or it can't or I don't want to overburden a friend or my partner or a coworker or whatever the case may be. I feel like this is an ongoing process for many of us throughout an entire lifetime that we're figuring out the nuances in each relationship of how much and when and where and how to, bare our souls with other people and how to carry things on our own. On the other hand, this transit and this whole process could be about the exact opposite. I tend to withhold, contain within, not say what's on my mind, be rather stoic, and like that kind of classic image of a husband who won't share his feelings, or and obviously that's just a stereotype. But could there be, on the other hand, some call to be more open, to be more reflective, to be more less inhibited, and to allow one's feelings to flow forth and be seen. So some of us during this exact same transit cycle of the new moon to this moment, maybe some of us have been working on restraint and some of us have been working to share and open. But either way, we're talking about mental, emotional boundaries. All right, number two, mental, emotional health and self care. Another just basic feature of the moon cycle and the connection between Mercury and Saturn present in this moon cycle, all the way up to this nice integration point, is questions about what are my needs and how do I get them met? And fundamentally, for most of us, although I will say that I abhor the sort of new age idea that everything that you need is within you alone. You're an automaton filled with, some kind of enlightened self-sufficiency and you're not a social being. That's all BS to me. I feel like there's always an element of self-sufficiency that we need to draw on. But by and large, we're social beings, we're social creatures who need love and connection with other beings to feel okay. And so, says the Cancer sun with Mercury in Cancer, right? Mental and emotional health and self-care, though, it boils down to knowing how we get what we need from the environment, from people, from the place we live, from the culture or an environment that we live in, but also from within ourselves. And the combination of those factors gives rise to, like an ecosystem that's flowing. How do we create an ecological, like an environment of well-being? It doesn't mean it's perfect. It means that we have tools that are there for us and people and things that we do to regulate. We know how to regulate ourselves, but we also know where to draw on help and nourishment and sustainment from the environment around us. These are Cancerian concerns. What kind of sacrifices do we need to make on behalf of the greater ecological harmony around us when other people's needs are stepping up and we might have to set some of our own aside? And also, how do we ask for what we need in a way that allows for other people to make some of those sacrifices for us? Well, it's a delicate balance, but there's a nice point of synthesis right now where we can be clearer about our needs, our boundaries, our health, our well-being, and what we need to do for ourselves and what is fair and okay to ask for from the people and environment around us. I wonder if that was so easy at the beginning of this cycle with so many squares between, airy Mercury ruled Gemini and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. There can be um like a feedback in a cycle like this that says, this is what you need to do to stay regulated in your nervous system, in your mind, in your body, in your emotions, so that you're not flooding the environment around you and making it hard for others. And so that you're also receiving the best you can from the environment around you. And then the same kinds of issues within yourself. How do you regulate yourself? So anyway, okay, let's move on. 3, family history and patterns of attachment. See, whenever you have such a lineup in Cancer, and we got a new moon in Cancer coming up, you get the Capricorn full moon. We have these watery trines between Cancer and Pisces. So one of the things we might look at are, family histories. How has family history gone into your mental and emotional health? That's a big, huge question, right? For many of us, that is therapy bills, like years of therapy, maybe, psychedelic somatic work. I mean, my God. At the same time, this is really important, I think. James Hillman wrote about this, and I always appreciated it. We can always tap into different therapeutic, like almost like paradigms. And like one of the paradigms is that there are elements of my trauma, my patterns, my dis-ease, my lack of regulation, my pathology that I can see tracing back. I can see the roots in the family of origin and the way I was raised. Completely legitimate and valid. And there also comes a time where we need to resituate the story of our our problems and our problematic patterns and trauma, we need to resituate it less in the past and less in terms of the family of origin and how it created all of our problems and how we have to heal our ancestors and blah blah blah. And we need to tell a different story. We need to have different options available to us. Sometimes we need to set down the whole ancestral lineage storyline, not saying it's not real, but saying I don't want to get stuck there. I don't want to constantly be working and reworking the stories of my ancestral past, my family upbringing, because then I'm always looking at it then from a standpoint of trying to fix a problem that exists in the past or that started in the past. And a different way of approaching uh, the story of our past is to see it from a space of karmic or cosmic appreciation, which is different. The karmic or cosmic appreciation of our ancestral or family past or origins doesn't mean that we whitewash all of the problems. It means that we choose to see it. Some people say, for example, this is the family I chose. Ugh, that I get why that would be a really big turnoff for people. Maybe it's not so much this is what I chose as it is there's something about my dharma that couldn't be what it is without the specific like matrix of blessings and curses that I was born into. So it's a kind of like like blues music is nothing but a good man feeling bad. It's like we're all to some extent like are looking at the past in terms of the problems. We have to be able to switch from sort of healing the past to appreciating the complex, like the matrix of blessings and curses, and seeing it as somehow a necessary condition for the evolution of the soul. I think that if you look at it that way and you use that to sort of, I mean, there is like somatic physical healing work for many of us that has to be done because of the traumas of how we were raised or how abuse happened in the family or whatever. And it's very real. So we need to be able to tap into like a multiplicity of worlds though, right? So how can you hold both worlds at once where you're doing this deeper ancestral healing work while also learning to hold it in a bigger kind of cosmic container? In my experience, one of the great benefits of psychedelic therapy, any form of psychedelic therapy that's got a strong intentional container that's sacred, is that it allows for both things to be true at once. And psychedelic experiences, and it's same in meditation and in different kinds of somatic work, you hold space for two things to be true. Yes, this traumatized me, and trauma has a larger cosmic role to play, and it's sort of confounding, but that's it, right? The reason that I'm talking about this right now is that when it comes to the excavation of mental emotional health patterns in the family, the trine from Saturn and Pisces allows us to sort of reach the limits of old stories. And Pisces is a place that really invites this huge kind of cosmic mystical perspective. So if the trine between Mercury and Cancer and Saturn and Pisces can do anything really magical right now, it may help us kind of place the family drama or the family history that's coming up around mental and emotional health in a bigger container. And we can also have that container of like, here's the problems in my past that I'm working to fix. We can also place it in this larger cosmic container that Saturn and Pisces offers. I somehow can stand in a cosmic awe and wonder and appreciation of this unique ecology of blessings and curses that my soul was born into. It's like finding the blues song of your life, where you can appreciate the aesthetics of your story. This is why poets exist and musicians, and because we have to have a space for appreciation. So I think we could find some deeper appreciation, which is the kind of the grittiness that Saturn likes in relation to something as delicate and fragile as the sign of Cancer, Mercury in Cancer. There's also just something to be said for looking at patterns of attachment healthy sense of uh, self-containment emotionally versus the very real needs that we have to attach and bond with one another. And there's all these attachment theories of attachment. You're anxious attached or you're anxious avoidant, and all these things. Some of those things could be coming up right now, and especially in relation to explorations of our attachment patterns in relationships and where they come from in terms of our family background. All right, that's it for today. I hope that this has been a useful exploration of Mercury's trine with Saturn, given the background that it's coming from. And yeah, pay attention. Tell us your stories too. I'd love to hear from you. And we will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everyone.